DC equivalent circuit. Let us call this as figure A. This is DC equivalent circuit. Just apply KVL to the basic loop and try to work out okay, find out the value of base current. Go ahead with that. You apply KVL to the base emitter loop. What will be the solution if you apply KVL to base emitter loop? Minus VCC plus IC plus IP times RC plus IB times RB plus VB plus IE times RE, which is equal to 0. What will be the substitution to simplify this equation? You can substitute IC as 1 plus beta IB and IE as 1 plus beta times IE, right? Substitute those two things. Substituting IC as beta IB and emitter current IE as 1 plus beta times IB. What we get it? Simplify this equation after substituting. So minus VCC plus instead of IC we have beta IB plus IB times RC plus IB times RB plus VB plus 1 plus beta times IB times RE, which is equal to 0. You need to obtain base current value from this. Just simplify for base current. Just multiply with this minus VCC plus beta IB times RC plus RC IB times RC plus IB RB plus VBE plus 1 plus beta times IB times RE, which is equal to 0. You can take out the IB as a common factor and simplify this for IB. IB to take as common factor, what is left out here? Beta times RC plus RC plus RB plus VBE. I think VBE transfer to right hand side plus 1 plus beta times RE. What will be right hand side? VCC will be right hand side minus anything else? Right. Just transfer and substitute the value of IB is equal to numerator is VCC minus VB, both being divided by beta RC plus RB plus 1 plus beta times RB. Substitute the value and find out the base current. 17.74 microamperes. VCC is given as 50 minus 0.7. Beta times RC, beta is given as 100 into RC is 5 kilo ohm plus RC again 5 into 10 power 3 plus RB is given as 200k, 200 into 10 power 3 plus 1 plus 100 times RE. RE is given as 1 kilo. Simplify this, you get IB as 70.74 micron. This is the value of this. Each problem is going to be different than the previous problem, right? So try to work out as many problems as possible. Once you know IB, it is very easy to calculate calculate current from this. So we know that IC is equal to beta times IB. Use this expression 100 into 17.74 into 10 power minus 6. Simplify this and you will get the expression for value of electric current. Electric current must be 1.77 milliampere. That must be the current. What we must find in this problem? Q point. Just don't estimate IC and VC. That's what we will find. IC we already estimated. Next is we need to estimate VC. How do you find out VC? Just apply KVL to this current circuit load and find out the value of VC. Understand this? Just work out here. Applying Kirchhoff voltage law for collector diameter loop, okay, minus VCC plus IC plus IB times RC plus collector emitter voltage VCE plus IE times RE, which is equal to 0. IE you can make it equal to the IC. IB is known right already. You can substitute and you can easily find out the value of VC. Just to find out the value of VC from this. So minus 50 volts plus IC is okay. I will change this to IC. In place of IE, I will take it as IC. IC is 1.77 milliampere. Plus 17.74 microampere into RC, which is 5 kilo ohm, plus VC, will keep it as it is, plus in place of IE, I am using as IC, which is 1.77 into 10 power minus 3 times RE, which is 1 kilo, 1 into 10 power 3. Just to simplify all this and find out the value of VC. Calculators and you can simplify this value. Yeah, VC must be 4.3 volts. 4.3 volts. All of you got this answer? Next is that what we can find out next. What is the problem which is given that beta is increased by 50%. You compute 50% of beta is what and add it to the old value of beta. Old value of beta is 100, 50% of this becomes 50 and this 150. New value of beta is 150. Again you have to work out the value of IB, value of IC will change, and once IC will change, U beta is equal to beta plus 50% of beta, which becomes beta is 100 plus 0.5 into 100, that makes one new value of beta is 1 volt. You can indicate in this fashion also beta, let us make it as nu. And if this is beta nu, this will be the beta volt value. Okay. Find out from that IV, base current IV. Use the same expression, whatever is given here, use this expression and substitute now new value of beta. What about this? So find out the value of base current. Base current is again just 15 minus 0.7 divided by 100 into, okay, not 100 now, it is 150 into 5 kilo ohm, 5 into 10 power 3 plus 5 into 10 power 3 plus 200 into 10 power 3. This is RB plus 1 plus 150, 1 into 10 power 3. Just find out using this value of base current. New value of base current, what we 12.93 microampere. You can even comment now. You can see that when the beta value is 100, the base current value is going to be 17.74 microampere. The moment you increase the beta from 50% decrease, you can see that the base current has been dropped. That it decreased. So you can make a comment about this. Increase of beta by 50% decreases the base current. Let us see the effect of increase in beta on the collector current. Okay, let's find out the value of collector current using the same IC is equal to beta IV. Obviously, this will also, you can see that increase. Okay, IB is nothing but now beta value is 150 into IB is 12.93 into 10 power minus 6. From this, find out the value of IC. 1.94 milliampere, right? So IC is 1.94 milliampere. Similarly, work out the VC. Again, substitute here also, because once you know IC changes, VC also changes. Let's find out the value of VC. Substitute everything. New value of IC. New value of IC is 1.94. Anything else? Yeah. So it is 1.94. Just see that what will be the new value of VC. 3.36 volts. This is the new value of current. Next, find out the percentage error in IC and as well as percentage error in VC, just as we worked out in the voltage divided by problem. So let us find out first percentage error in collector current is given by. So take out difference of collector current of this and as well as collector current of the other. So this is 1.94 into 10 power minus 3 minus, so the collector current for beta is 100. that is 1.77 milliampere. 1.77 into 10 power minus 3 thing divided by 1.77 into 10 power minus 3. Multiply this with 100 since you need to express this in percentage. And see that what is the percentage error of IC. So you're supposed to get 9.6% is the error. Simply work out percentage error in BCE. Percentage error BCE for this we got is 3.36%, 3.36 volts minus from the BCE for we have 100 4.3 volts divided by 4.8 and this is multiplied with 100 and what is the percentage error for BCE? Minus 23.3%. Okay. So this is the error for BCE and 9.6% is error for IC. Okay. So go through this problem if you have any questions. Okay. Any questions here? Okay. A couple of assignments as we mentioned need to write it. Assignment number is 1. Next your subsequent assignments will be given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next time remember. For this you need to refer the textbook which is page number 158. From the review questions, you need to answer these questions. Question number 1, 2, 6 and 7. From the problems, exercise problems, you need to solve problem number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. Okay. Submission is 2/9/2013. Literally in blue book or long note. Any questions about this? Don't write it in sheets like this. Okay. Sheets are not considered assignment. Better to take it in long notebook so that all assignments you can write it in single or long notebook. You not take separate notebook for separate assignment. Okay, the moment assignment is verified, you can take it back. Don't submit me the blank the assignment blue books or unanswered thing blue books. Simply writing question number 2 but answer is not written. Such kind of that has done by experts also. HCM and there were lots of assignments. Okay, simply student write question number and they will allow me to write the answer. You don't have time unfortunately. Then all answer question whatever. So answer all questions. Okay, don't worry about mistakes. Okay, it does not mean that you do mistake there. Okay. At least to a certain extent, try to solve problem on your own. Don't copy these assignments. Okay, copy nothing. I am going to do it, but still be honest in writing these assignments. Okay. So as I told you already, some marks I am going to consider. I am not saying how much marks I am going to give you at that, but still I have every year I used to consider assignment questions for the final internal assessment. So keeping that in mind, at least some the reward must be given, otherwise you people will not write assignment. So that's the reason here. This is the main motivating for you to write an assignment. If you are scoring out of count, then there is no point in the write. Any questions about that? With that, we will move on to the next topic, which is interesting thing, which is thermal not talking thermodynamics. This is mainly the theoretical with mathematical concept present in this topic, thermodynamics. Anybody aware of this term, thermodynamics? We already given introduction maybe in the earlier classes. What is thermodynamics? Okay. You can see that because of the thermal and transistors going run away, excess heat which is producing in a transistor. You can see that reasons why this excess heat is produced in a transistor. Okay, so in a transistor, what will happen is whatever the power generated, okay, that must be dissipated properly. Otherwise, what is going to happen? You know, if this room does not have proper ventilation, then people will suffer from suffocation. Right? Excess heat will be generated. The same problem is going to happen in transistor also. Very small device. Even though we provide presently the transistor with lots of heat sinks and coolants, okay, but still there is a lot of heat is generated in a transistor. But it seems to be like, you know, very small amount of power which can be neglected. But think about same thing in a processor, Pentium processor. Okay, you have seen the Pentium cabinet inside motherboard, how exactly the processor is being placed. Everybody has opened up cabinet so far. And if you remove the heat sink, you know what's going to happen. Anybody has tried it? Don't do that, but still. You can look at demos in some, you know, videos in internet. What will happen if I remove the fan in the processor, fan on the processor? The processor will blast up, you know. Very serious case. First of all, you know, without fan, the processor will not turn on itself, you know. It expects always fan. Okay, a lot of coolant has been put on the processor so that, you know, the processor must be comfortable, otherwise it will not turn on itself. So a lot of precaution has been taken care, you know, while designing the processor. It could be any company which vends the, you know, the processor. A lot of precaution has been taken care because whatever heat generated in the processor, that heat should be removed. As we said already, the transistor, you see number of transistors in the Pentium processor, it's almost passing, you know, the 2 billions. Right? In upcoming days, you can see it may cost 2.5 billion or 3 billion like that. Because more and more, we are going to introduce logic into that, more features into that. How it is possible to incorporate more features without transistor? Is it possible? Each and every function in a Pentium processor or any other processor is possible only through the transistor. So transistor act like a fundamental element. You can even refer to any microprocessor textbooks where they will write it how many processors a Pentium processor contains, how many transistors a Pentium processor contains. If you look at old processor which is Pentium 4, maybe you know that is 8 to 10 years old processor. That is nearly contains 75 billion of transistors. Now this trend is billion is already gone because we want more features and more parallel processing, more pipelining, such kind of things is possible only with a more number of transistors. More logics can be implemented with the help of transistors. So today's class we will see that we are talking only on single transistor, we are not talking about all billions of transistors there. Okay, but you know that when you keep accumulating all powers, you know, assume that one small transistor which dissipates a few microwatts of power. Yeah, small few, couple of milliwatts of power. Think about 1 billion transistors are there. 1 milliwatt into the 1 billion. Is it acceptable? It becomes so much, the factor, right? So that much amount of power is generated in a transistor. So we'll discuss in today's class thermal runaway. This is a phenomenon or condition in which transistor is going to get, the excess heat is generated in a transistor, the condition in which, the transistor is going to burn out, if that is cumulative process. Okay, so that condition we are going to discuss in today's class, and the topic is thermal runaway. That means transistor is going to a situation which is going to burn out. That situation is called as thermal runaway because of the heat that is going to be burn out. Let's look at a few factors here as per the syllabus point of view. You can see that the transistor, power dissipation capability, and PD, some notations I will be using so that we can expand by studying the textbook. If I use notation like PD, this PD, power dissipation. The power dissipation in a transistor depends upon various factors. First of all, it depends upon the size of a transistor. Understand this? Size means smaller size, small power dissipation, larger size, large power dissipation. I am talking with respect to single transistor. So size and as well as the mounting arrangement, how exactly the mounting has been done, mounting arrangement, and also finally the construction of it. That means the power dissipation in a transistor depends upon all these things. Size of a transistor, how it has been mounted, it's vertically mounted, horizontally mounted, different mountings we have. It's inside the cabinet, sink, whatever you see, in the laboratory, the transistor sink. Okay, inside that there is a transistor is there. Don't think that the sink itself is a transistor. Whatever is surrounding, the silver case is a different part of the sink. Inside that the transistor has been mounted. Even the power dissipation depends upon it. And even the construction also. How it has been constructed. What phenomenon, what method, what approach are used for construction. Based on that the power dissipation also depends upon. Okay. So these are the few things, and there is two different types of transistors are there, which I will highlight here. One is small signal transistor, and another one is going to be called as power transistor. Anyway, in our laboratory we are not going to handle any power transistors, but of course there are different transistors are there. If you look at a small signal transistors, it's going to be few hundreds of milliwatts. Power is going to be generated in this. But if you look at this, the small large signal transistors, the power dissipation even goes up to 200 to 250 watts up to this power dissipation. Okay, that's why handling power transistor is very difficult. Among these two type of transistors, one is small signal transistor which you see in our laboratory. Power transistors, normally we have in the electronics branch, students they study power electronics, where they need to use the transistor for some large power applications. There they use power transistor. They cannot use ordinary transistor which we use it for laboratory purpose to construct an amplifier. They use even the symbolic representation. Everything is going to be same, but this handles larger current levels and as well as voltage level. That's a different aspect of transistor. Different type of transistors are there. I have to aspect transistor based on the power amount of power which it can dissipate. Small transistors which you see in our laboratory, few hundreds of milliwatts, that's all, not more than that. And the power transistors, which is 200 to 250 milliwatt. And moreover, this concept thermal runaway, you can see that among these two transistors, the power transistors are going to be more prone to the thermal runaway because the large current they are carrying and large voltages they are going to be handling. Due to that, these transistors are more prone to the thermal runaway. When you are using power transistors, you should be very careful so that thermal runaway will not occur in such power transistors applications. Okay. That's going to be the situations. Okay. So let's look at the operating temperature of the transistors. We have two types of transistors, as you know that silicon transistor which can operate a wide range of temperature, which is going to be 150 degrees Celsius to 225 degrees Celsius for silicon transistor, and if you have a germanium transistor, its operating temperature is going to be quite low, which is 60 degrees Celsius, and it can go up to 100 degrees Celsius. The reason why it is a low operating temperature for germanium is because this has got more conductivity but less temperature operation range. And silicon, that why I am giving all these points is because the thermal runaway, okay, mainly that depends upon these things. Power generated, power dissipation, that should be matched equally. You understand the terms here? I introduced this already, introduced speed, power dissipated. That means a power which is heat which is generated, that should be removed. That's called dissipation. Another term which is called as Pg, power which is generated. That means Pg must be approximately or closely equal to the PD in a transistor. If this condition does not occur, then definitely such a transistor is going to be affected by thermal runaway. So the amount of power generated in a transistor, that must be even most of the cases equality we don't expect here. Power generated must be less than the power dissipated. Right? Understand the point here? If that does not match, definitely thermal runaway is going to happen. Okay. So that's going to be the thing here. And here we are going to give some mathematical aspect of this. There is a mathematical equation. Before that, I would like to write a few graphs here. You can see that the power derating graph. The y-axis is power last one is going to be 200 degrees Celsius. You can see that beyond 75 degrees Celsius, the power dissipation keeps on increases. So it's nothing but it is PD max. So this figure, let me label it as A. It's nothing but typical power deviating curve of a transistor. Power deviating curve of a transistor. I will define what is power deviating. So power rating is totally different from the power derating. Okay. There is another term I would like to introduce, which is called as ambient temperature. Ambient temperature. The ambient temperature is nothing but the room temperature. You understand? Most of the times we will use, instead of using the word room temperature, we will use a term called as ambient temperature. It is nothing but room temperature. Okay. Look at this curve here. Okay. As ambient temperature keeps on increases in a transistor, okay, what will happen is power, whatever it is dissipated, that keeps on decreases. That's what this curve shows. And the phenomenon is called as power derating. You understand this? Let me indicate ambient temperature as okay, what I am trying to say is as ambient temperature increases, the power dissipation PD keeps on decreases. One is increasing, the other one is decreasing. This approach is called as phenomenon is called as power derating. Power derating. That's what this curve is showing. You can see that the x-axis which represents the temperature, okay, in a transistor, this is actually we are showing with respect to transistor, and you can see that from 0 degrees Celsius to 75 degrees Celsius, power dissipation is almost constant. But beyond that, when the room temperature is going beyond 75 degrees Celsius, let it go up to 200 degrees Celsius. You can see the PD max is PD. That's PD is going to be decreasing. That is power dissipation in a transistor keeps on decreases. This approach, whatever you see here, is called as power derating. These are definitions which is usually asked in examination. What is power derating? You can explain their topic. Our main intention is not explaining this only the thermal runaway concept. Our intention here is to see that how this can be explored for a transistor. That's our main intention. So look at this thermal runaway. So far, what we discussed is just a theoretical concept of a transistor itself. Transistor power dissipation of it depends upon what factors, types of transistors, transistor operating temperatures. In a transistor, for thermal runaway not to occur, this condition must be satisfied. And we introduce a term called as ambient temperature. In a transistor, if the ambient temperature keeps on increases to a certain extent, power dissipation will be constant. But beyond that, power dissipation keeps on decreases between beyond 75 degrees Celsius onwards. Let's come to the fact here. Why is thermal runaway is important for transistor? What will happen in the amplifier if the thermal runaway is not taken care of? So those aspects we are going to discuss. As we discussed so far, the operating point. Okay, if the operating point is not designed properly, definitely thermal runaway is also going to occur. If circuit design, if you don't do it properly, then that causes a concept called as thermal runaway. And now we are going to overcome that. We are going to identify in this today's class. Okay, so we can take up the concept here. If the transistor circuit is not designed properly, if the transistor circuit is not designed properly, it may lead to the phenomenon. It may lead to the phenomenon called as thermal runaway. It may lead to the phenomenon called as thermal runaway. Okay. That's just a theoretical definition. I have given reason here why the thermal runaway occurs in a transistor amplifier. Now see that, let's go through this. As we know that in a transistor, current will flow. Okay. In an amplifier, let's consider an amplifier circuit. So current will flow through the transistor. Obviously, when the current flows, what about power? There must be some power dissipation, right? Okay. We can start like this. When the transistor amplifier is in operation, current will flow. Let us say some IC is existing. Okay. IC is existing. When current is flowing, obviously there will be some power dissipation. Because we know that power dissipation formula is voltage multiplied with the current. When there is a current flow, obviously there must be transistor will offer some resistance to it. Current into resistance, I square R also relates to the power. Power is dissipated now. So what will happen later? What will happen to the junction temperature? When the power is dissipated, do you think junction will be remains constant? Junction is normally in the amplifier will reverse bias, right? Okay. Normally in the amplifier case I am discussing this one. In the amplifier, what will be the collector base junction? Reverse bias. So obviously what will happen to the junction now? Junction temperature rises. So what I would like to write here is, let me indicate this JCB. Okay, JCB temperature increases. Understand the phenomenon? There is a one-to-one link here. Normally in a transistor amplifier, current will flows. When current flows, some power will get dissipated in a transistor. I am looking only particularly to transistor, not a complete amplifier circuit. So in a transistor current, when power is dissipated, obviously the temperature across the junction that increases. When junction temperature increases, what will happen to the leakage current? So obviously leakage current will keep on increases. ICO increases. Again, see the cumulative effect here. If ICO increases again, IC also increases. It's a cumulative effect. This whole process becomes a cumulative process. Okay. Cumulative means additive process. Just keep on adding. That's all. Additional, you know, the current. Addition of current, current again to come back here now again. Okay, we have started from IC increases. When IC increases again, more power, more junction temperature, more leakage current, more collector current again. This is the cumulative process. Okay, this when a certain stage has been reached, where excess, you know, the heat is generated. At one point, transistor may be burned out. Okay, that concept is called as thermal runaway. Why it is happened, I already told you. When the transistor circuit is not designed properly. Understand it? When the operating point is not fixed properly. So due to that, this thermal runaway is going to occur. Any questions about that? Okay, I am going to introduce one mathematical formula. First formula is this: Tj minus Ta, which will be equal to theta times the power dissipation. Let us consider equation number 1. I will explain this equation in terms. What is Tj? Looking at the term, you know, T stands for temperature, right? Junction temperature, minus ambient temperature. Difference: junction temperature minus ambient temperature. Room temperature minus your temperature. What will happen? Amount of temperature heat generated, that should be equal to, see the right hand side what we have? Power dissipation. The difference of this must be equal to power dissipation. The theta is called as thermal resistance. What is here? So difference in the temperature, that must be equal to the product of power dissipation with the thermal resistance. So here we define various parameters. This is called as junction temperature. This Ta is called as ambient temperature. Theta is called as thermal resistance. I will define later on what is thermal resistance. Don't worry about it. So I will have a definition for thermal resistance. PD indicates power dissipation. So many equations will come across. That's why you label the equations properly. Okay. So now we define what is the theta now. Theta is given by Pj minus Pa divided by Pd, which I will call as this, let it be equal to dPj by dPd. When you have a derivative here, you can read that as the rate of change of power with respect to junction. Always read from the denominator and go to numerator. When you have a derivative like this, rate of change. But what rate the power is changing with respect to temperature? That's what we see in the right hand side. Understand? Look at the left hand side. Coming to the same theta, whatever we defined here, I want to give definition for this. Whatever it is, retain theta here, transfer this PD to the denominator. That's what we got expression. The theta is nothing but it's a ratio of changing the junction temperature to the power dissipation in the transistor. From this, can you write a unit from this? Degree Celsius per milliwatts or watts. That can be the unit for this. So that's going to be the unit for this is so it is degree Celsius per watt. A small transistor we can write it in terms of milliwatt, degree Celsius per milliwatt. That's going to be the unit. But for large transistor, the unit is degree Celsius per watt. And this thermal resistance is proportional to the rate of change of power dissipation with junction temperature. When junction temperature changes with power dissipation, obviously the thermal resistance is also perturbed. So let us call this equation number 2. Indirectly, I will call this one as theta is equal to dTj by dPd at equation 3. Any questions so far? To calculate inverse of this, what will be the inverse if you calculate 1 over theta is equal to dPd by dTj, let us call this equation number 4. Okay. This is called the temperature rate. The inverse of thermal resistance can be called as a temperature rate. The temperature rate is given by the rate at which the junction temperature changes with the power dissipation is given by 1 over theta. 1 over theta, but again the reciprocal of thermal resistance. Using 1, 2, 3 equations, what I am trying to do here is I am trying to establish a condition, a mathematical condition. If any transistor satisfies that mathematical condition, we can say that transistor is thermally stable. If any transistor ignores or violates this condition, that's what I am going to establish by giving deriving all these equations. I am going to come out with a mathematical condition, okay, which every transistor has to satisfy that, so that transistor is stable. If any transistors violates that condition, then we can say that transistor is thermally not stable. In examination, we can ask plenty of problems on that. Using that condition, we can verify that. They will give some temperature values and power dissipation values. Look at the condition, and you can say that whether transistor is thermally stable or thermally unstable. Those two aspects you can come out from that. Any questions so far? So both of that. Any questions? Yes. We will continue with this equation. I will stop it by discussing here a small graph here. This is a small graph. By looking at this graph, can you tell me what graph I have done? Anybody? This graph you are seeing somewhere? Where you are seeing? For which circuit this is load line? which bias is given here. For which bias, this characteristics will be the load line. It's a load line I have written. I have not written here common emitter characteristics. Just I have written here load line, that's all. Now my question is, looking at these two things, can you tell me for which biasing this will be the load line? This will tell you clearly for which bias. This is over RC plus RE. Emitter bias. Right? Emitter bias.
And I have shown a few curves inside this AC load line or load line analysis. This is nothing but load line analysis of emitter. We already studied this load line, how to draw this load line. I am not explaining again. Look at this curves. I am interested more here about this power dissipation curves. Okay, you can see that there are three power dissipation curves which I have considered here. One is lower one, which is 100 milliwatt, small power dissipation. Next one is medium, one is going to be 200 milliwatt.